Welcome to this week's edition of Oregon Minute. Each week, OCA Media features a guest or community leader who shares information on topics important to you, our listeners and viewers. New weekly episodes are broadcast on our cable channels as well as on demand through our YouTube channel. Visit ocamedia.com for more information.
The Oregon Minute is brought to you with financial support from friends of OCA Media and viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Oregon Minute. I'm Paul Zwicker, sitting in for Tom Kirchdoerfer. In recent years, there has been a lot of interest in the former site of the Methodist Church at 249 North Main Street here in Oregon. There have been a variety of suggestions for uses of the property, now owned by the village. It was considered as a location for the new library, but because of a number of challenges and the village board and library board, as long as a lot of public input, and it's been agreed that the new site for the public library will be on Alpine Parkway. The North Main property has been mentioned for a number of possible uses. OCA Media is happy to support community discussion, and a recent letter to the editor in the Oregon Observer suggested that the property might be a good place for a sculpture garden. To provide additional information about this idea, we've invited two longtime community members to today's episode of the Oregon Minute. Welcome, Ray and Susan. Please, welcome to the Oregon Minute.
Thank you for having us. I really appreciate it.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for being here. And let's start with a little bit of background about you and how it relates to this project.
Well, I've been in Oregon about 25 years now. I moved from the Milwaukee area, love Oregon, and really want to give back to the community. So when I came here, I made a pledge to be very involved. And I have two children who went through Oregon schools, excellent schools. I was on the school board for 3 years. And prior to that, I did a lot of volunteering at the schools. In addition, I've been working on the new library project, running around town, raising funds, knocking on doors, all of those kind of things. And now we're going on to the next great joint venture, which would be, keep this spot, keep this community space a community space. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Susan Shedivy. I lived on Main Street for 20 years. I was a founding member of the After School Club in Oregon and also the Oregon Historical Society. I taught at after school clubs for 8 years, and after that I taught at Oak Hill Correctional for 10 years. I've been very interested in the prairie movement and the native plant movement. I took the Master Naturalist class, which has really inspired me to work more closely with native plants.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So how did this idea come about?
This idea was something that I've been thinking back about it probably about 12 years now, because what happened even prior to that land being thought of as a space for the library, people were thinking, let's make that a community space. And that was before the buildings and the land and all of that was purchased by the village and then eventually torn down. So what we wanted to do was think of that space as something public for public use. And what better use than to have it be a park here right in the heart of downtown, where there's beautiful old trees that Susan will talk about, and many other reasons for having the park there. We'll get more into that in a little minute. Okay.
So I know that when it was situated at or considered as a library location, there were a lot of concerns about parking and water management. And have you addressed those yet, or is it too early in the development stage?
We have addressed that. Actually, the plan for the park is that we would be doing very light construction and not something like a large apartment building, right? So we would have a shelter there, no basement to it. It'd be very light, and therefore it would not in any way affect the land and the water issues that are going on. We have a plan also to scatter among this 2.7 acres native plants, as Susan was talking about. And native plants are very good because the roots go down into the ground versus grass that might be like an inch or two. So that helps to hydrate the area, actually move the water around and soak up the water. So we're thinking of having native gardens, prairies, rain gardens, monarch gardens, all of that. And then the sculpture part would be where we have trails, like walking trails. And we want those to wind through, make this a very, very interesting area. And then as kids and families and visitors come to Oregon, they have a place, a destination park to go to, and maybe go out for a Sunday drive. You come to Oregon because it has this awesome park that's beautiful with these gardens, wonderful walking area, very imaginative playground. We're thinking castles and imaginative play. We don't want this to just be any old park. This one's going to be a very creative park. And then on top of that, we want to have the perimeter of the park have biking trails. So what would happen is now that Main Street was fixed, there's actually a biking lane. So you could go right down Main Street on the biking lane, turn into the Main Street lot, see these beautiful art pieces right off of Main Street. It draws you right in. And then from there, you could meander through the park. We're also thinking about maybe having e-bikes. So if you have e-bikes, that's another reason to come to Oregon. And in addition to the e-bikes, we would have sculpture tour maps, and people would get their bike, or maybe they'll have their own bike, or maybe go on foot. And they can go downtown, look at the sculptures there, but the park would be the focal point. And then from there, they could move out to satellite parks. We're hearing the library might have a sculpture. This could put Oregon on the map, where we are some community in Dane County people want to come to from Madison, elsewhere, and even throughout the state, because it'll be so unique and so beautiful, and we'll have so much to offer for families and visitors.
One of the important things I want to mention is that this property contains iconic oak trees. There are two in particular right in the middle of the property. One of them is a bur oak tree that's over 200 years old. There's also a red oak tree on the property. There are other trees on the property. So this property has been undisturbed for at least 150 years. The church was there, but all this nature grew up previous to the church being built, and it continued to grow after the church was located there. So these trees absorb water. They're very important in preventing flooding and runoff. So that would be a very important aspect of this park, to save those trees so that you don't get the flooding and you don't get the water runoff into people's basements.
I would imagine if it's a natural space without pavement, it's not going to have an issue. So this is a new idea for a community, but not for others. Where have you explored other sculpture gardens, and how are they received, and how are they doing?
We've actually been doing case studies, and we have looked at 3 right now, but it's actually branching out all across the country. It's kind of like pulling a yarn ball. You pull the thread, you pull that yarn out, and all of a sudden the whole thing unravels, and there's so much excitement around the country. So we started by looking into Eau Claire. So we're talking, central northern area of Wisconsin. And what they did is totally turned around their downtown, their historic district, and their businesses. And when I say turn around, I mean in a very, very positive way. So for about 12 years now, they've had this, what they call the sculpture tour. It's called Eau Claire Sculpture Tour. And they started small, like all programs do. And right now they're up to 55 sculptures, and they're the second largest sculpture tour in the entire country. And now they're planning to add more, and maybe by end of this year have about 75 or 80, and they will be the biggest. So what's happened is it's been so positive and has driven so much tourism and business to town that the woman who has been the unpaid staff for 12 years, total knowledgeable woman, she's helping us, she's helping other towns. And she said that, I'm now paid staff and part of the tourism department. And all the main clicks, unbelievably, on the tourism website are all about this tour. The main questions they get are about this tour. On top of that, people that come to town to do interviews, like the various travel writers, they'll look at the breweries, they'll look at the wineries, they'll maybe go out to restaurants, and almost all of them write about the tour because it's so wonderful and so beautiful. What it does is it pretty much meanders through downtown. It includes parks, which is what we're thinking of as well. Now, their downtown is bigger than ours, and that's a big reason why we feel we need to have the sculpture tours start in our park. Because if we want to have a number of them, we want to have it in this focal location, drawing you into the park on Main Street and then drawing you out, because our downtown's a little bit smaller, right? And so that's one example. And that was so great that Red Wing, Minnesota called them, hey, could you help us? So Red Wing now has what they call an art walk. Same concept. People walk around the downtown, and then they also walk through the parks, and they enjoy the sculptures, they enjoy the businesses, they enjoy what they call a sense of place. And what they mean by that is some of these sculptures are on loan, they lease them, and then they rotate them. So they're very interesting. You're rotating every year a third of the sculptures. So the next year you rotate the other third and so on, always changing it up, but then people also purchase. So businesses get so excited, and foundations and art groups, that they say, you know what, we will purchase this piece and we want to make that a permanent piece. And what that does then, it creates what they call, and I had not known a lot of this, we're learning so much, what they call a sense of place. So people will stand in front of the sculpture, they'll do these like selfies, post them on Facebook, and all of a sudden everyone knows that this is unique to that city. And the last one, very briefly, is Stevens Point, and they have a 20-acre sculpture park. They too have been doing it for 12 years, total success. Again, bringing tourism in, bringing people together. That's a big, big part of having these sculpture tours in the gardens. It brings people together. And that's something that we should talk about, that it's free. It's accessible to anyone in the village once we do this. It crosses boundaries. So whether you speak a certain language or have a certain color of skin, or maybe have a certain political value, it doesn't matter. Everyone enjoys the art, and they can come together around the art, and they can transcend boundaries. So that's happened in Stevens Point very, very successfully. And what they've done too is they have brought in people from different age groups. So they're actually doing tours of kindergartners all the way through college. They make it a part of their curriculum. So they teach about art, they teach about industry. And one of the sculptures that they purchased in some of these initiatives were actually put together by students. So it's a wonderful thing where they bring the students in. And then in Stevens Point, the students make some really creative art, I would say, initiatives, and they string them between the trees. So they make like tin can chimes. They make some paper mache items. They make birds, all sorts of fun things, and the kids are involved in the projects. So it's a wonderful thing. Maybe we should talk about the parking. Do you think? Want to address that a little bit? What we're saying about the parking?
The thing is, there's a lot of parking in this area. We don't need to build a parking lot on this property because it's a very walkable property. There are parking spaces on Market Street. There's a parking lot across the street that is not used on weekends because it's used by the schools. We've got a lot of parking in this area. I don't remember how many parking spots we counted at one time, if it was 60 some or 90 some parking spaces.
Right.
That are already here. So we don't need to be building a parking lot.
Right. And the other thing I would like to add to that, and that's really critical what Susan just said, because right across the street is the school parking lot, and the school already agreed, the school district, that we could use that had we been using the library there. Okay. But the other thing that's important to know is that there are actually parking regulations here in Oregon. So if we build on that site, there'll be 1.5 parking spots per unit. So if you build, for example, a 30-unit apartment building there, you have to, by code, minimum, have 45 parking spots. For a park, there are no minimums, no maximums. You put parking there as needed. And a great example is the Keller Alpine parking area. People use that quite a bit, right? People come, people go. It's a very small parking spot because you don't expect people to all come at once. And so this way, to your earlier question, it's good for the land. We can be stewards for the land and not pave it over, just to the very small extent necessary. And maybe even use gravel and other means.
Have there been any other locations considered in case for some reason this doesn't work out for this particular property?
Well, the concept that we have is to save the native wildlife, the native plants that are on this property. There are iconic trees that have been there for 200 years, and we think those are very important, and you can't transplant those trees to some other location. The location here is a beautiful location. It's in a historic neighborhood. It's accessible to the downtown, and these trees are the center focus of this property. And we've begun to be much more aware in just recent years of the importance of saving native trees. And the oak tree itself is considered to be one of the most valuable trees in the United States because it supports more insect life and bird life and wildlife than any other type of tree. So we feel that these trees are a very important reason just in themselves for saving this property, aside from all of the other reasons that Ray has mentioned.
And the other thing that,
Oh, go ahead.
you sure? The other thing I wanted to add that, it's the two of us speaking, but we have actually been doing a lot of outreach right now. And the reason I bring that up is we find that we are working with a number of people in the community, including businesses, who really, really want this. So right now we have 140 endorsers, 40 of whom are businesses. We have every single restaurant downtown has endorsed. We have even the restaurants going out on Janesville. We have people up on North Main Street. Businesses love this idea, and I think we need to really hammer that through this whole conversation. We have to make that very available. What's happening is businesses are really having troubles because of the pandemic. We're starting to come out of it right now, but for the last 2 years, they have not had a lot of income that's come in on a regular basis, right? So they need to try to make up for that. And what they envision and we envision is that this would be so close to downtown that people can go downtown, grab some food, do a takeout, the whole family, come to the park, sit down, maybe on a bench or one of our beautiful picnic tables, which, by the way, we want them to be very artsy, all colorful. We're not just talking a plain old picnic table.
And we've already had one of the businesses say that they will donate benches to our park. So there's been a lot of enthusiasm from the businesses.
Right, exactly. And even people, okay, we'll give you native seeds. Come to my house. I have a native prairie. You can harvest that. Be there next fall. So this has gained incredible enthusiasm. So not only would people maybe be downtown and they bring their food here, they might come into town, right? So they hear about this great park. Maybe they rent an e-bike, pick up the sculpture tour map. And they go, hey, we need lunch. So they head downtown to one of the 3, 4, 5 restaurants, all of whom, every single one, like I said, has endorsed because they see this as having value, generating income. And it's actually already proven in these other 3 and many more areas around the country that this can be done.
And the entrance to this park would be highly visible to Main Street. So anybody coming into Oregon is going to see this park and want to walk through it.
Right.
So the village is going to incur some costs. Do you have any concept of what they might be, maintenance, etc.? Currently, it's just a lot, and they're just not getting taxes on it or anything like that. Do you know what that cost might be?
Well, I can tell you a couple things that we've researched. Number one, this property has really not been on the tax rolls for well over 150 years. Because you go back and you see the history of it. It was the Methodist Church, not on the tax rolls. Then it was sold to the village it was actually owned by a developer, we'll say, for a very few years. And then that developer sold it to the village. Right now, it's already bought and paid for. So it's not as if we are going out and saying, hey, we want you to buy this quote for us. The other thing is we want this to be not a neighborhood park. It's not a neighborhood park or a tot park. We've done a lot of research, by the way, reading the park plan, the comprehensive plan, and there are different kinds of parks in the village. And so a neighborhood park is smaller for just a neighborhood. A tot park is really tiny, a little tiny tot park. That's for little kids, we're in the neighborhood. Community parks, though, they have a different mission. And that's what we envision this being as part of one of the community parks. But to get to your question of money, we have already created a friends group. Normally you get the park and then you do the friends group, okay? But we decided we're going to get right in there. We're going to have a lot of initiative. We created the friends group. So we already have an EIN. We have a bank account. We're bringing money in.
We have a website.
We have a website. We have a Facebook page. We have PayPal. I mean, we have an infrastructure. And right now we're utilizing the money more for promotion to get out the idea. But we will have a lot of sweat equity. So this model that we're using is very much like the model for Anderson Park, right? Where Anderson Park was actually purchased, and I did not know this. I thought it was given. It was purchased
From the Anderson family.
by Dane County, right? And then after that happened, we're talking at several hundred acres out there too. This one's like minuscule, 2.7. And then the Friends group has really pretty much done the work. So that's what we plan to do. And also that's being done at Lerner Conservation Park. So we know that there's a big crossover between people who want to do work in parks. And we already have people saying, hey, I'll do it. So, and also offering, like we said earlier, various skill sets. Case in point, with this shelter, we could have people we know, even on our block here. There are a number of people that we know who do construction. We could be doing that kind of like how Habitat does that. You get people to volunteer to make the structure, get the kids involved from the school to paint it, like pretty cool collages or murals, this kind of thing. And get the various organizations involved and the various businesses to contribute.
For the last couple of years, I've attended an event called Oktoberfest, and it's put on by the Waukesha County Land Conservancy. So it's in Waukesha County, but I've gone to two of their Oktoberfest events where they are promoting the use and the preservation of oak trees. And in 2019, I attended, and they were celebrating a bur oak tree that was 312 years old. It's considered a champion tree. On that day, there was a combination of donations that went toward this event. They had a raffle, they had a silent auction. They raised $30,000 in that one day from the people that attended the Oktoberfest.
And just kind of bouncing off what you're saying, we're finding out so much information, you would not believe it. As we talk to people, the possibilities become endless. So here's an example. Up in Red Wing, they started their tour just 1 year ago. The other ones were 12 years in length. And they said that they had, in 2021, we're talking pandemic time, the best year ever for businesses in that city. On top of that, what they've done is they would think outside the box. They would have events all about the tour, the walking tour. Then they would also have promotions with the businesses. They raise the day after Thanksgiving, this is when they do their event, $500,000. So this is something that I think we need to be visionary. We need to be thinking on a grand scale. Other places are doing it, and we're told that this whole initiative nationwide, which I mentioned earlier, Main Street America, that we plan to join, by the way, is actually very alive and well in Wisconsin. So other towns are doing this. They are building up their towns. They are revitalizing their downtowns. They're making them more historic. They're bringing in the arts. They're bringing in the businesses to help with that. We're talking fine arts too, music. So there are a lot of possibilities, and I think that we would do well to be saying, this piece of land is priceless. And when we talk to these organizers in other areas, that's what they tell us. They go, oh, wow, you really have something here. The fact that you actually still have a green space in downtown is pretty unusual. And keep it that way and utilize it for the community and also to draw in businesses downtown.
I think we're getting close to getting all the info we need, I think, and about this. If somebody wanted to learn more about these parks, where could they find information?
Okay, we have a Facebook page and website. Website is www.oregonsculpturegarden.org, because we're an organization.
Also, if you just Google Oregon Sculpture Garden, it pops up.
Exactly. And the same thing with the Facebook, same name. And if you want any information on some of those other parks, just Google those names, because I know that have been mentioned as a possibility. You know, what are the case studies, what exists? So you could just also Google Stevens Point Sculpture Garden. Get out there, look at it. There's gorgeous pictures of all of they have 40 plus sculptures. Same thing with Eau Claire Sculpture Tour, ton of beautiful pictures out there. And then the same thing with, if you go to Red Wing, go Red Wing Art Walk.
Okay.
And that's what we plan to do. We're going to have these sculptures. We're very positive, and soon you'll be seeing them on our website.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate all the information. As we wrap up this episode of the Oregon Minute, what do you think you'd like to leave with our listeners about this, your idea of having a sculpture garden here? If you could give them an elevator speech as to why you think this is a great idea and how we could benefit. Can you share something?
Well,
like
my elevator speech is that we need to use imagination and foresight and to protect this gem that we have in Oregon. It's very unusual to have such a beautiful property near the downtown that can benefit the downtown and benefit all of the citizens, as well as people that come from out of town.
And I would concur. I think it's a great opportunity for us to bring people in Oregon together. It creates a sense of unity. It's also about diversity. Other areas, by the way, have been bringing very disparate groups together. So up in Eau Claire, for example, they're having people with Polish heritage and people that are, some of these young executives and other groups together, bicycling groups. We can do things like that here in Oregon. We can bridge some of the divides that sometimes happen in communities. We can be excited. We can actually be creative, building something new, doing it together. We can revitalize the downtown. We can be bringing businesses here. And you know what? We can also be bringing in employees, because the one thing we've heard is that people want to move to these other places that have these art initiatives, and they want to live there and they want to work there. So this is going to be good for development. I know that's a big buzzword in our community. We need to grow. And this is a way that we can actually grow and fortify our local economy. Last thing I want to say, it's good for our health. It's very good for our health. We as residents need places to go. And this park is totally unique. There will not be one other park like this park in Oregon. And it has a different vision. It has a vision of relaxation, kind of just enjoying the woods, enjoying the trees, enjoying the plants, enjoying the sculpture. It'll be a very nice place for people to relax, spend time with families. And also we can be doing educational events there. And on top of that, I can be thinking of ice cream socials among all of these plants and flowers and sculptures.
That sounds like a good thing. Let's leave it there. Ray, Susan, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us on this week's episode of the Oregon Minute. Sounds like there's a lot of thought that's gone into this, and perhaps some more that needs to come yet with our community balancing this and the other priorities that are coming forth in this community. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
That wraps up another episode of the Oregon Minute. Tune in each week to hear from community leaders and organizations in the Oregon area. If you have comments or suggestions for episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Please contact us at ocamedia.com. Thanks for watching.
You're watching OCA Media, your Oregon Community Access Station.